States of America, and serious public permission stands to one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Today is on Wednesday, USC, so everybody is here at lunch if you are participating today. Tomorrow, Captain America will be all in your America year. During lunch and after school in the main class. And today we ask you guys to get athletic therapy at 3 o'clock in the AP's office. Tomorrow we have a legislative meeting at lunch in the AFC room. The second grade representatives, make sure you guys come. There will be free pizza and community service available. Also Friday we have the homecoming carnival at lunch in quad. You can come see Donette perform, cheer perform, and cheer on your princess. Thanks, Tamara High. Have a great day.
Carnival? I thought that it was like rides and stuff.
Yeah, I got excited.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
How did you what? I don't know.
Did you not copy your sheet?
No, I did.
How did you make it to the full page?
I don't know. My dad just scanned it and printed it out for me.
I didn't.
That's a
I
really
draw
like
mine.
clean scan.
Yeah, wow.
That's like what?
That's phenomenal.
Wait, Olivia, how did you just copy that part out?
No, but like it looks like not scanned at all, and it's like bigger than the books.
I have no idea how my dad got
No,
rid
wait,
of
straight up,
it.
they even lose resolution.
Like, he's really, I think he like,
It's like, how
Did
did
you
you
put papers around it?
like, I think he like photoshopped it out or something. I don't know.
It was like, was it like
Current. I
like
love
kind of
it.
wacky, like twisty, or was it just like what you wanted, what you expected?
No, like, literally trying to take them from me.
I hate, I don't know. I feel like I don't want them to like
No,
No, I just speak at the math. I just talk at the math meeting.
it's like, I just hate doing
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that like, I like lost my son. I haven't even finished watching.
Why?
I'm not even part of it. Like me, Kylan.
Oh, yeah, so I saw this movie and like it was like he was every day. I like look at my phone.
No, well, me, Kylan, she's me, Kylan.
Dude, like it's so like I forget about it all day, whatever.
Like we're like the only ones that were in it last year. And then Alex was talking to she's like,
It's normal. It's like
My dad's gonna
she's like replacing someone.
so mean to Alex, so like accidentally make her cry.
My mom said that last year. She was like getting the cars done and then like December something.
They were so bad last year.
and then his closet like burst open and he's like weird like
The only one that came out good that I saw was
Excuse me, students. I'm ready to start, and
one of them was really understood the others.
I'm ready to start, and there's some big stuff to talk about today. One really important thing is I gave you the wrong study guide.
What?
no.
No.
That's so stupid.
No, really, I'm serious. You did 3.1 correctly, so that's all good.
Okay.
Oh.
But did anybody work ahead into a future assignment?
I did all of it.
You may need to renumber or reorganize. All the questions you answered are legit, but there's a couple questions missing from the ones you've already done, and we will fix this together as a group now. It'll work out. But that's what I mean. It's an important day. We've got a lot of details to correct, so we're all on the same page. Yeah.
Are you talking only study goals or SoCal also?
Both. But we can fix this, and I'll help you.
Does this involve like the 3.3, 3.2 out of order thing too?
No.
Wasn't 3.3 just 19?
Well, it's a long 19, yeah.
I will answer all of this. Stop it, you're hurting me. First of all, take out your study guide, walk it over to the recycling, or hand them all to Jack. Pass them all. No, even better. Pass them all to Mark. He'll recycle them.
So just the question study guide, right? Like not your answers.
Just the packet, not your answers. Just the study guide packet.
It's so much organizing on here. Yeah, you're like.
Hey, Jack attack. Well, you cruise it over to the
Where are you guys going to the movie?
copy place and ask her if she has more for me. I sent her a note this morning, like, I suck, please make me these urgently.
I'm gonna put it.
This is like, don't pressure
I'm gonna
her.
put it
And
on
actually,
and take out the stuffing.
The double yellow, which means that you'd have to like stay in a slow button.
So it's just like anorexic. I'm gonna make it anorexic. I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah.
It's a little fat. That stupid selfie that you took that
How obvious is selfie?
Yeah, does it not have a front camera?
Yeah, I go down like from San Roque, I go down Anaconda, and like it's always
Alright.
sketchy for me, like if it's hard.
I apologize for my stupid craziness. I am stupid, and I am crazy, and I really apologize. But we will fix all of this, starting with, there were some study goals for the Cane Toad movie.
No. I actually like wrote that stuff down.
You have these in the paper that I'm about to hand out. Right here. And you probably answered all this already, because I told you to do this, and that's basically what these are. So if you want the numbers and the exact question, here comes the updated study guide. And can I please suggest, just so that you don't make any confusion, that you label this one update. So the one I'm about to pass out, please write update on it, or new, or the second, or whatever you want to write on there. Mark, upper left on the metal rack, there's some of the wrong ones. Can you recycle them too, please? Thanks, buddy.
So we have more of those.
Yeah, we have like more work to do.
Oh, Dave. Oh,
Stop.
shut up.
I only have soil across that one.
So please look up. Please look up. These are part of an assignment that is due Monday of next week. But since the movie's fresh and we just finished it last class, I thought it might be easy to answer these now. Cane toads were introduced to Australia to control the cane beetle, or cane grub.
How did that work out? It did not.
Second part of the question, it didn't work. And third part of the question, something about the timing and the place, right? Like the grubs are on top and we all know that frogs can't fly.
Yeah.
Something like that. Now, after you finish writing what you're writing, I have kind of a question to see if anybody knows better than me. Did anybody catch in the movie what it is about Australia that was different from Hawaii? Because in Hawaii, I heard that they were a successful predator to the grub. Was it that the grubs aren't laid in the dirt or something? Yeah.
Wasn't it that there was like more predators in Hawaii, so they had like less options?
Maybe. Maybe.
It was something about like the timing of their breeding.
Of the beetle, you mean?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that.
They like weren't
That was
in
like-
those fields at the same time.
Yeah, I thought it was like weather planets where they just weren't in the same place at the same time.
So it seems like we've invented every possible option. It must be one of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
For 36 was poison, I didn't quite catch what
We'll get to that tomorrow, 35 still.
Alright.
I think the reason that they didn't eat the grub was one of the possibilities. Timing, space, or ecological competition in other species. For whatever reason, they just didn't line up. The grubs were not around the frogs. So number 36. What made them so successful?
Fast and successful breeding.
Yes, they're prolific and early breeders. There's other things that made them successful. They are early and fast breeders, but what else?
They didn't have any predators.
They had no naturally occurring predators because they're poisonous. The frogs are poisonous. And they have little, if any, competition. There's no other native Australian frog that's even in the ballpark. Next. Oh, and there is a secret about number 36 that I should probably mention. You know, one reason that they did so well is Australia is just like Hawaii in terms of climate in this part of Australia. So they had like a perfect climate overlap, a perfect weather overlap. You know, if you drop those frogs in Antarctica, they wouldn't have invaded Antarctica. They would not have invaded the Sahara Desert. There's just kind of like a perfect parody of habitat types. God, my poison oak really sucks. It's getting really sensitive.
How long is it supposed to take for it to go away?
I don't know. This skin is really tender here. I've noticed when I get it on like really thick skin areas, like my forearms, it goes away in like 2 days.
So like, isn't the inside of the hand like really not?
Yeah, right. That can't be a poison.
Like, I don't like in Italy, like these guys like just pick up jellyfish and inside of the hand.
Yeah, right. You get the right spot. Okay. And then impact on the ecology of Australia. You probably know this already. They've lowered the population size of anything they can eat, anything they compete with, and anything that tries to eat them. The other place you may find some confusion, differences in your packet, are some vocab in 3.1 that we do in class anyway. It is the soil crust terminology. So microbiotic, cryptogamic, cryptobiotic, and microphytic soils. I'll show you. You can see at the top of the packet these words right there. So those are new. And we'll define this in class, so it's not a big deal. You couldn't have gotten it out of the book anyhow. So you'll notice in your 3.1, you might want to add biological soil crusts. And then we'll define that in lecture.
Can we put it like below?
I don't give a crap at your notes! And finally, the only other difference is the new study guide added study goals number, I think 18, 19, 20 or something.
Yeah.
Those might look different.
19 was supposed to be the long one, and now 21's the long one.
So 19 was the long one, but now 21 is the long one. So you should just check the numbers if you've already done all the homework.
Yeah, number 21 is due tomorrow.
That's it, just 21.
Yeah, it's long.
It says right there, just 21?
Yeah. But that's due tomorrow, right?
Yes. Okay, so I'm sorry about confusing you.
Please.
Just so you know, Unit 3 is now on EDU 2.0. So if there's ever any other confusion, the correct packet is on the web. The wanted poster is on the web. And let's start on assignment 3.1. 3.1 vocab questions. Cool. So I want to talk a lot about generalists and specialists. It is a 3-star section of the class. It's a critical concept, and this terminology also goes into study goal number 1. I'd like you to use your imagination about something. Imagine that you are all one species of snakes. Okay? Some of the snakes, please look up, only live on the ground. And within that species, there's a spectrum of possibility. Of course, there's like short people and tall people and people in between. So there are ground snakes, tree snakes, and snakes that can do either way, ground or tree. I like it all. I'm flexible, man. This is all one species. So there's a spectrum. We would say short, medium, tall. But in this case, it's terrestrial, arboreal, and terrestrial and arboreal both. Now, watch this, because this is like a super theoretical issue in macroevolution. This is like the thing that I studied most at university. And I think if we can make this one distinction, the entire understanding of evolution gets easier. So watch carefully. These guys live in the trees. So they'll compete with them when they're in the trees, but that's it. These ones live on the ground. So they'll compete with them, but only when they happen to be on the ground. These guys compete with both. Them when they go to the trees and them when they go to the ground. Does that make sense to everybody? Who faces most competitors?
The middle one.
The middle. In evolution, over time, we split niches. We split the difference. We diversify to avoid competition. It's not on purpose. It's not like competition is bad. But just imagine a completely separate topic. If you face more competitors, you're just more likely to lose, right? Imagine, when they've left the population, you have nobody to compete with. And when they've left the population, you have nobody to compete with. But as long as they're around, things are harder for everyone, and they're losing the most. Does that make sense?
So does that snake in the middle evolve to be like one of the other snakes?
Well, I don't want you to think of this as one population shifting. I want you to think of this as one population splitting. Because by splitting, As long as there's enough ground to support them reliably and enough tree to support them reliably, over time, the most successful individuals, the one who makes the most babies, will be one of the specialized extremes, not the losers in the middle that keep fighting with everyone. Yes?
But if they're going up in the trees when they're down and going down when they're up in the trees or away, wouldn't they be also gaining the most?
You mean
The middle?
because they can find openings?
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
they can do both, wouldn't they be gaining the most?
Absolutely true. So if you assume that these guys go someplace else at some time, or these guys go someplace else, that's fine. But remember that for many characteristics within a species, they're full-time one place, full-time another place. By being in both, you always find someone wherever you go. So you always have a competitor. The concept that I want to introduce now is that over time, specialization increases because it avoids competition. I got to be really clear. It's not like snakes decide individually. The snake is a stupid animal. The snake does not know the word competition. The snake does not have a careful plan. This is not directional. It is circumstantial. It just so happens that these ones were born with the in-between gene, and so just by virtue of their birthright, they're not going to have as many babies because they're always competing with someone. So over time, that gene just sort of disappears. Understand that it's a circumstantial thing. There's no design here. It's not intentional. It's not like these snakes decided to stay on the ground because they hate competing. And it's not like these snakes decided to stay in the trees because they hate competing. It's that without knowing what the hell's going on, these guys have less babies and eventually they lose. Does that make sense? Circumstantial splitting of populations.
I have a question. When a population is splitting, it has to be because a barrier has come up, right? Or is that not?
No. So there is things which let you drift into different species.
Okay.
If I could keep you all separate from them all, then over time you would just genetically drift away from that population until 20 trillion years from now. When you bump into one of them, the nuts and bolts don't fit anymore.
Okay. Well, what would split these three species into
So you-
trans women?
Precisely the competition where the ones in the middle lose.
They just stay off.
Okay.
This is called allopatric speciation. And we used to have this other model of speciation. Like we got to get them away from them so that they will drift apart. It turns out that that's actually not that common. The geographical isolation or the temporal isolation is rare as the reason that species evolve. This idea, where in one place the competitors lose the most, so they have the least babies, so you end up getting two extremes. It's called allopatric, which means in one place, same place speciation. And we didn't have to separate you, neither temporally nor spatially. We just sort of divide you because in the middle doesn't always work genetically. Yes?
So the snake that could do both is a generalist.
Yeah, and so let's get back to those terms.
I thought generalists were going to end up being more successful.
There are times when that helps, and we'll get back to that too. So watch me. A generalist is a species that can make a living in any number of ways. It has what we call a broad niche. So a good example would be like an alligator or a great white shark. They can eat almost anything. They can live almost anywhere. They're not picky about timing. They're not picky about places. They're not picky about diet. A generalist is like a Swiss Army knife, multi-purpose. In economic terms, they're like a Jiffy Lube in the world of mechanics. They can work on any car. Bring us any car. We'll work on it. No problem. Generalist. And a specialist is the exact opposite of everything I said. A specialist is really picky about their diet or about their habitat or about their timing. That's the guy that's only open 2 days a week and works on 1970s Italian race cars only. You know, super specialist. No, I only work those 2 days a week, man. No, just 1973 Ferrari, that's it. Now, do you realize that the Ferrari guy has less competition? He's the only guy that works on Ferraris. But what do you need to stay in business if you just work on Ferraris?
A lot of Ferraris.
You need a neighborhood full of Ferraris. That's exactly right. So whose mechanic business is going to survive the most economic ups and downs over the long term? Jiffy Lube or Ferrari specialist guy?
Jiffy Lube.
Because if Ferraris become less fashionable, Jiffy Lube can still work. If the economy goes down and everybody has to put their Ferrari in mothballs, the Jiffy Lube guy can still work. The Jiffy Lube guy can move to any city and be Jiffy Lube guy. But if the Ferrari guy moves out of Beverly Hills or Montecito, he's not going to find another population of Ferraris anywhere else in the U.S. Newport Beach. So you'll notice, a generalist can always make a living, but a specialist can crush when the conditions are right. But when you change the conditions, the specialist is the first to lose. Another way to say this is that in a stable environment, specialists will evolve. But in periods of change, the generalists are the only survivors. Have you noticed that sharks and alligators have basically been on the planet in some form for like 250 to 400 million years? The idea of being a shark hasn't really changed for 350 million years. Because, you know, there's always something to eat in the ocean. Great white shark is super generalist. They don't own the entire ocean, but, you know, they can basically make a living no matter what happens. Alligators, they've been around forever. They haven't changed much. All the other dinosaurs died, but not the alligator. Age of the mammals, mass extinction, mass extinction, mass extinction. Alligators are still going strong. Because, you know, it's a really simple business model. It's like, I'll change oil for anybody. Or in the case of the alligator, I'll eat whatever is close to the water. Are we clear on generalist and specialist? I gotta warn you, this is a 3-star issue. And if you just kind of got the definition, that's not good enough. You have to understand that specialists evolve in stable environments, but they're the first to die when things change. Other vocab in 3.1? Bueller?
Can you kind of go...
Taxa are categories to organize life. So have you ever heard the analogy keep pots clean or family gets sick?
No.
Kingdom, phylum, class, order. Oh, kingdom, family, class, order, phylum, genera, species.
Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family.
Fine, that one. That is taxa. Those are taxa. Genus is one taxon. Like taxonomy is organizing life into categories. Cool? Yes?
Can I ask a question on a study goal?
Almost, but we're done with the vocab. Yeah.
I know what the definition is, but I don't really understand.
It's finding patterns in the distribution of life on Earth. It's actually like a really cool process because it fuses together the history of geology with the history of evolution with the history of taxonomy. It's kind of interesting how species get to become their current communities. Any more vocab? That's good. Because number 1 is also 3 stars, and I'd like to talk about this a lot. It's again about generalists and specialists. Niche gets 3 stars. In business, just so that you know so you follow my analogy thinking, in business, your niche is quote unquote your business model. Like what your business does differently from every other business. And in ecology, a niche is how your species makes its living. So there's a few key variables you should know. Niches are defined by habitat, or diet, or timing, or life cycle. By the way, when I say timing, I mean seasonal and also the time of day.
Is that like mating timing or?
It might be, or when they choose to eat. Or, yeah, so seasonally would be like when they go out to the ocean to look for their partner for lovemaking. And diurnal would be like, are you out at dawn and dusk only? Are you out during the day? Are you out during the night? This is how we define a species niche. I'd like to try something out for you. We had our population of snakes, and after one generation, there was a few less of this type. And after another generation, there's a few less of this type. And within 20 generations, you've become 2 different types. And within another 100 generations, you'll probably have drifted genetically to call yourselves different species. Okay? We could say that one large niche was split into 2 smaller niches. Does that make sense to everybody? And look, in the type of evolutionary science that I studied in university, we have little drawings for this. Imagine that we're going to start with one species, and you know, things stay stable. So that species will split into 2. One half is out during the day, one half is out during the night. Because you understand, the ones who were out in the middle, they just had competition all day and they disappeared because they were like competing with everybody. Does that make sense? Now, let's say that the daytime species will split their habitat type next. So they go, oh, you know, being on the ground is cool and being in the trees was cool, but being in the middle didn't really work because we were competing all day. And then if you're living on the ground during the day, well, you could split your diet and that would give you less competition. So the vegetarians will eventually split apart from the carnivores. And eventually, being carnivorous, you know, there's a lot of competition over different foods unless you split into eating insects and eating mammals. Can you guys see that over time we're adding more species by splitting niches? We started with 1 species. Now we have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 species. So watch this. Over time, specialization goes up. And that means diversity increases. Key evolutionary concept that as long as things are stable, diversity will go up because we're splitting niches. It's better not to compete. But remember, a specialist needs stability.
So what would be an unstable?
Climate change, meteor collisions, volcanic eruptions.
So is that part of the reason why diversity is
Yeah, the reason that species are going extinct today is fundamentally that things are becoming dodgy. So if you've been specialized for a long time, you're going to lose. You know, remember, generalists, they're like weeds. Generalists are always around. So it might get too hot for the orchids to survive, or too dry for this, or too wet for the cactus or something. But the really generalist weeds, they're going to make it no matter what, right? You know, if the eucalyptus goes, there goes your koala bear. But no matter what, we're never going to get rid of the effing cockroaches. Because they're generalists. Yeah.
Are humans considered generalists?
Humans are probably the most generalist thing on Earth right now.
Yeah.
We have found a way to live underwater if we want. We have found a way to live in the snow if we want. We don't really have a true habitat limit. We have very few diet limits. We don't have timing limits, and we don't have life cycle limits. So we are arguably the most generalist thing.
Except like the human as an animal, like without like all the stuff that they built, like can't survive in like all those habitats.
Oh yeah, I mean organismally we're really brittle.
Yeah.
But there's a separate thing that each of us carries, which is not just our organism.
Like the brain.
Brain, right? And it's, well, the brain is part of your organism, but keep in mind that we also have our group brain, our culture.
Yeah.
Your dad's knowledge can be passed to you or to me, and I can give you some of my dad's knowledge. We have a group brain. It's called culture. And culture is an extra tool that lets a knowledgeable person cheat their organismal limits. It's a crazy concept, right? Humans are the only species on Earth that can remove limiting factors. You guys realize that disease would limit the spread of humans until we started curing diseases. And food availability would limit where you could hunt and gather until you can store up food you've grown yourself, and then you can go anywhere with extra food. Yeah.
So, like, what happened? Like, why are we like this, but like cats are
Opposable thumbs.
I mean, you know, nothing happened. Like, this is just a moment in time. We are also one of the only species that quote-unquote shits where it eats, if you'll forgive my French. We are degrading the systems on which we depend to a point where we're going to not last very long. We're the most successful generalist until we kill the planet enough that we're not going to last. You know, historically, we'll be a very short-lived species. Homo sapiens sapiens has only been on Earth for what, like 1.2 million years or something? 1.4, I don't know, the number keeps changing. I mean, we probably can't last 1,000. As we are now. And so, like, we've been like a plague on the earth as a generalist. We're like locusts that just came through the cornfield. But there's not a lot of corn left, you know. And I don't know what happened is, maybe the baby Jesus wanted it this way. Possible. Like, no, that sounds so dismissive, but it's always an option. Like, that's a real, like, that's not tongue in cheek. Like, I honestly recognize that religion is totally possible. Maybe this is all, like, you know, what one or the other religion says. Yeah.
Isn't like the big thing though that like made us like successful? It's like the jump from being like an animal to like somebody that uses tools and like grows stuff. Like that's the.
But that's just it. We're an animal. Like other animals use tools. We're just really good at this group brain thing. We have this like mass consciousness we carry. Because of our language, you know, we have the biggest brain for our body mass. We have like the most language of any animal that we're aware of. There are specific characteristics that build that culture, but the fact that we have such a successful, volume-rich culture, like that's our secret advantage. All right. Anyway, everybody good with this concept? I've got one more. But only in periods of stability. In other words, change favors generalists.
So is this adaptive radiation or is that different?
That is different.
What is that?
Well, we can get to that. I think it's a separate study.
Wait, what does that say on seasonal and on the board?
Diurnal, like which part of the day. All right. This thing about niches, generalists, and specialists, there's just one thing I've got left. Remember that the longer you are stable, the more it pays to specialize. If I notice Alessio is doing a really good job working on 1973 Ferraris, I might want to work on 1973 Ferraris too. And the competition would hurt us until over time, he says, fine, I'll take the red ones, and fine, I'll take the yellow, black, and white ones. And the lack of competition means we both build a good consumer base. Specialization can get ridiculously tiny.
But when people stop wanting those black and white ones, then you just start.
Remember, specialization can shrink your niches down. So do you guys realize that there are like moths that only live as a flying insect for like 48 hours, which is the exact time that a specific flower will open? All they eat is the pollen of that one flower, or the nectar of that one flower. And that's all. They're specialized to be the adult feeding stage for like a 48-hour window in one part of the world on one dietary ingredient. That's really fragile. You know, climate changes, the flower opens a week earlier, goodbye moth. Specialization can get ridiculously small. You might end up with some species that has this teeny little niche, and in a period of stability, that'll be fine. They only eat dark rodents with long tails that hide under dead logs in one part of the forest for one season of the year. And if there's enough of that, sure, that'll work. That's a good way to make a living. Nobody will compete with that niche. But remember that stability is required for specialists. As soon as you get a big change, the only ones that shoot the gap, that come out of the barrel, are the very generalist ones. Okay. How many of you found this too theoretical and kind of obnoxious? How many of you have heard all this before? And overall, interesting to think about, flat, or just move on, dude, this is getting really old. Okay, you should know that this is a struggle for me because this is the science that I'm a specialist in, so I could do this for one whole year. I've got details. I don't know how far to expand this. Like, we could stay on this one drawing for like 6 months. Let me know sometimes. If I'm getting too nerdy, you can just go like, bro, just move it on. I'm getting bored here. That's okay. You can tell me that. Yeah.
Did you maybe talk about limiting factor and help with the warm-up?
I want to come back to that because these are in anticipation of study goals that get stars.
Not insert and then just kind of warm up and
Oh, I mean, make sure you scribble something, but it doesn't have to be right. And then I'll give you a more accurate description.
Okay.
Okay. Next, I'd like to show you one of the newest federal government patents. Do you guys know that our government patents technology sometimes?
Yep.
Are we still shut down?
Yeah.
Yeah. Last I heard, we were this morning.
What is the hope for getting out of it?
There is no hope.
Well, what had happened last time we got out of it?
We wallowed in self-loathing for like 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks or something.
Well, everyone else laughed at America.
Exactly.
North Korea is still going strong. Oh.
Oh man.
Can we just look at
So unfortunately, you're getting my photo stream instead of my other stuff.
What is that?
This is the crap in my life. Sorry.
That's not crap.
Yeah, so I'm getting rid of a planer. Anybody want to buy a 12-inch Delta planer?
What does it do?
It's probably going to be about $100. It's a thickness planer. So I don't have this picture I wanted to show you. Look.
Oh.
Federal government just filed a patent for a Burmese python trap.
That's great.
So I'll tell you a story. Just like the cane toad, the Everglades has a really damaging invasive species new to the ecosystem. Species there are not evolved to handle it. Pet snakes, especially pet boids, which are large boas and pythons. The most common in the United States is the Burmese python. Also the red-tailed boa, very common in the United States. And Joe Schmo Caballero has one in a pet in the house. As a pet in the house, I feed it little pinky mice until it gets big enough to eat white mice, until it gets big enough to eat rats, until it gets big enough to eat bunnies. And at some point, I'm tired of feeding this thing, so I just go, okay, go be free. You know, if you release a Burmese python in Santa Barbara, the first winter will kill it. Did you guys know that somebody released piranhas into that little pond over across the street from Star King?
Yeah.
It's happened like 5 times.
You mean like
I went to
Alice
preschool.
Alice Cat. You did? You love it? You have like really fond memories?
Yeah, it's the best.
What is the name of
Has it positively shaped your education? My daughter went for 2 years and my son Toby's there now.
Yeah, it
Where?
was like I
You went there too?
loved it.
Did you guys love it?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Did it make you a good student?
Yeah.
Where'd you go to
It was,
elementary?
Like guinea pigs and stuff.
Where'd you go to elementary?
Mountain View.
Okay. Alice Keck Park, someone released a bunch of piranhas.
How long ago?
The man-eating cat.
It's actually happened 3 times that I know of. The most recent one was 1998.
Why?
But it's probably happened since then. I've seen people releasing aquarium fish there. Because people have these things called pets, and when you get evicted from your apartment or your
Isn't the ocean
girlfriend is allergic to your pet animal,
My pet piranha.
people let them go.
Can you eat piranha?
You can't eat piranha. It's not very good. It's a tetra. Well, because some people like their pets, Paige. Fish are pets too. They have feelings.
I hate fish.
Fish are friends, just not food.
Fish are the dumbest pets ever.
Oh my God! What is wrong with
When
Paige?
my goldfish died, I was like,
I have a
just
pet
so
fish, I
sad.
Are you a fish torturer?
She has her frozen pet fish in her refrigerator still. No, me.
That's really
It's
weird.
okay. It's the best way to euthanize them instead of flushing them, which is painful and dreadful.
Freezing is
So the
pretty
piranhas
gnarly.
I didn't do it.
No, they would have bitten a person if they were really hungry, but they were contained before that. Yeah.
Aren't there in out the park like koi?
Yeah.
Is it bad to release koi in there?
Yeah, I mean, I would not recommend adding anything to any ecosystem. You should not be moving species into your house or out of your house. We love exotic stuff, so we're like, oh my God, look at this beautiful parrot from I don't even know where. You know, 90% of African gray parrot owners can't even spell Senegal. So they're like, oh my God, look at this beautiful thing I got. And then eventually it's like, oh, I want another beautiful thing. And so you just get rid of the last one. And we're just like shuffling the deck, invasive species, just like new ecosystem. Let's see how that works.
Do you like pets?
I love pets. I love animals. I had pets my whole life. I've bred like more than 100 species.
What do you have?
A variety of really rare tropical fish, reptiles, birds.
Oh, that's
And
all
I
really
bred the
good.
crickets to feed the lizards, and I bred the mice to feed the snakes, and I bred the rats and rabbits to feed the big snakes. Yeah, and I've had dogs and cats and everything.
Rabbits
I
are
love
the worst.
birds. I'm a bird.
I hate birds. Those are the
But
worst.
back to me with number 2. We're not making fast enough progress. It's my fault. Burmese pythons have been introduced in the Everglades, and they're doing really well. Apparently, southern Florida is just like Burma, but nothing there is knows to be afraid of big snakes, and nothing there eats a big snake. When a Burmese python gets big enough, they have no predator pressure. So I visited the Everglades one day, and I met a ranger, and I always meet the rangers. Whenever I go to the national parks, I'm like, "Hello, ranger, I'm a nerd, I love the parks. I spend my summers in a park. Tell me about your park." And so I met some dude that was like, "Oh, you know, blah, blah, blah. Once a month I do the thing with the Burmese pythons." And I'm like, "Oh, tell me more. I teach environmental science and I'm into snakes." And the guy says, "Oh, blah, 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 blah. We capture them once a year and then we keep them in the back." And I was like, "What? You keep them in the back? Can I see them?" He's like, "Yeah, come on." So we walked through the nature interpretive ranger office. And in the backyard, there's like a concrete pad, almost the exact size of this classroom, surrounded by chain link fence.
Oh no.
And they keep like a car parked in there, and they have like this big stack of empty trash cans, and this big stack of lids, and a big stack of cinder blocks.
Just for them to climb on.
And then on one side, they have trash cans with lids and cinder blocks on top of the lid. And he's like, I was like, and then I looked, and if you lift up a cinder block and you look inside, there's like one big ass python in that trash can and one big. And they do these things called Burmese python roundups, where the national park will like advertise to the community, and they're like, "Hunters, wilderness lovers, and snake fans, help us exterminate our invasive pythons." And so yeah, like once a year, they have like a 5-day slaughter of Burmese pythons. And people just like cruise out through the park, and they have like their tools or weapons for catching Burmese pythons.
How do you feel about that?
Wait! Apparently this is interesting. Hold on. So yeah, I'm sure it could be dangerous, and yeah, I don't think it makes sense to have Joe Schmo civilian heavily armed like shooting in national parks. But I think that it's a carefully managed program. So like you only have a weapon if you're like a certified licensed hunter, and I'm sure that they limit like which firearms or which methods, or I don't even know if you can shoot them to tell you the truth. But however they capture them. The first year they did this, they got they do it about this time of year. So the roundup I think happened like 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, so middle of September, early September. The first year they did that was the year 2000, and they got 2 pythons. The next year they got 3, then 14. 23, 70, 94, 170, 248, 343, 367 in the year 2009, and I heard the most recent one was either over 700 or over 1,000. I can't remember if I heard the right number.
Are they getting better at hunting, or are there more snakes?
A, they're getting better at hunting them, but B, the snakes are growing in population faster than the park is getting better at exterminating them. So the harvest of pythons is like this, and the population size of pythons is like that.
Wait, why don't we just like instead of having this once a year, do it like every day?
Yeah, why not in like open
I mean,
season?
you know, it's expensive. I don't know if they have the staff, but it's like a big priority. There are invasive species in every park. The Burmese python just happens to be an interesting one to talk about because I've seen it. Okay. So number 2 is kind of cool. And I don't want to start number 3 because the bell rings in like 4 minutes, 6 minutes.
Can you move the chair, by the way, so I can copy that line?
2 minutes? Can you reach over and turn off the recorder thing? Just click on the camera and